Hi, everybody. My name is Nikos Tronios. I am Innovation Lead for Robotics and AI at Innovate UK. I'm chairing this session on behalf of Tom Fidian, who was originally planned to be the chairperson, but because of difficulties, he wasn't able to hook up. So the reason that Tom was meant to be the chairperson was primarily because he was one of the key people who managed to run the competition for which the presentation is based on, the COVID-19 competition, because in March last year, roughly at the beginning of the pandemic, even before the furlough schemes have been implemented, Innovate UK was tasked with the task of strategizing and delivering some timely innovation funding for companies who were directly impacted by the pandemic to address both the disruption in their sector, particular sectors, and the society in general. At that point, the message that was communicated to the team who was trying to strategize and organize this activity was speed is more important than being perfect. So a program was developed around this theme and around quick response. All mechanisms that we had at Innovate UK were reconfigured to be as efficient and as lean as possible. So in just over a week, we had designed and launched a 20 million competitive program, which could get money in a de minimis fashion to companies' accounts in a matter of weeks instead of months. Typically, this is a cycle that we have been running. So we were prepared, or so we thought, but the program proved to be very popular, and the first round of the competition came up at 9,000 applications that we had to process. To put it in a perspective, 9,000 applications, this is more than the total amount that we usually get in a year's period for over 12 months. So because of the popularity of the program, the budget was doubled, so it came up to 40 million pounds. Another programs also help in funding additional activities, and the ISCF, the Robotics for Safer World, of which I am a member of, also participated in this contribution. So all of this came up to the funding of over 43 million pounds, and more than 900 projects were funded. So because of the COVID, that the disruption that was created affected all of that, all of our lives and all of our sectors, the projects were very different. So this is more or less demonstrated by the companies and the project that we have today to present, which involved robotics for cleaning, for healthcare, facilities and services, data platform and AI, and drones deliver protective equipment and other activities. So by that, I believe that we start with the first of the video. Please go.
Good morning. My name is Jacques Decoq, and I'm the chairman of the Perfect Little Company, TPLC for short. I would like to present you the work we have done to use robots to improve cleaning in care homes by 40% using the thoroughness of our robots. The project was conducted in 20 care homes using the test, clean, test method. We deployed our robots using our patented Hive, vital for professional cleaners, and used the Hygienia UltraSnap ATP testing equipment, which is a standard measurement tool to measure contamination in most commercial environments. We standardized the measurement using special testing hoops and training care home assistants to do the testing themselves using a standardized methodology. We then cleaned the space using our robotic swarm and then retested after the end of the cleaning. The results were conclusive. The average reduction in contamination across a variety of different floors was 40%. This compares to an actual increase in contamination using traditional vacuuming. We have since tested our robots and measured the improvement they create in a variety of environments, including offices, hotels, and schools. In fact, the usage of our robotic vacuum system has more benefits. We not only reduce contamination by 40% on the first day, but up to 77% for repeated usage. We also save 60% of cleaner's time based on average human cleaning, and also 60% of energy, saving about 120 watts per 1,000 square feet of vacuuming. We look forward to continue to enhance the performance of cleaning using modern tools and robotic deployment. Thank you very much for your attention, and please contact us if you want more information.
So after watching PLC's cleaning robot, we have right now the Extend Robotics helper, and we can go to the video now. Now, after having seen robots operating in the physical world, we will go to a project by RAI Industries to demonstrate digital or virtual type of applications for data and AI assistance. Can we go to the video, please?
Hello, we are RAI Industries. We started out the Innovate UK project with the Sentinel Engine platform, our core product. And the goal of the platform was to be the most flexible data backbone for Industry 4.0. You go to our self-service website where you get a code snippet. That code snippet goes into any robot, IoT device, or automation system that you have. The data is securely sent to our platform where you have no-code dashboards that you can quickly configure. And the goal was for the platform to bring operational efficiency to businesses that have hardware devices operating in the real world. We deployed that across service robotics, logistics, manufacturing, and the life sciences vertical. And it was in the life sciences vertical that we saw a huge opportunity to transform the lab as a whole and to really be the next generation of productivity increase in that space. So what we're starting with is an AI assistant called Lumi. Lumi can ingest data from the very earliest stages of research and development in the lab. And essentially we're starting by capturing audio and visual data. Lumi is voice activated, and therefore scientists themselves no longer need to ever have a logbook when they're doing experiments. Lumi also facilitates remote monitoring and observation as well, which means you can have collaborative distributed teams. All of that data from Lumi goes to a cloud platform, which brings better data stewardship to the group, to the company themselves. You can have research groups, and each one of your experiments is logged as a time series of events, where you can then go and interrogate that. You can dictate, and all of your dictations are matched to your experiments as well. But the most interesting thing that we're doing in the extension is, as Lumi is capturing benchtop data, we are also tracking and understanding what's going on with your experiment, what the hands are doing. So our goal is to then be able to deploy an ecosystem of hardware devices that can support scientists and augment scientists with or without humans in the loop as well. Thank you.
Going from the AI and data space, we're going back to the physical world. And the next video will be from a project that was funded through the Future Flight activities for delivery of equipment via drones. Can we go to video, please? And the next slot, the final one before the panel session, will be Arnie presenting from Titan Reality.
Hi. So at Titan Reality, we have worked on creating a remote system using virtual reality. Collaborative robotics has been a subject for quite a long time now. But the question is, how do you use real industrial robots from a distance and knowing the difficulty of the risks? And so we use the XR transformation using virtualization of the robot created in VR. And we created a virtual system as well to simulate the robot and create hand tracking interactions. So a 12-year-old can actually interact with a real industrial robot and generate automatically all the controls needed for the robot to work, to happen at distance. So the idea is really opening the access to industrial robotics to SMEs and people who don't have the technical skills, and create a very natural interaction, both for training, simulation, and actual operation from a distance with a very accessible piece of equipment, and also to create time sharing with industrial robots for universities and industrial applications for this.
Thank you very much, Arnie. I guess right now we can go to the panel session. And
yeah.
in the panel session, we have Zach from the Perfect Little Company. We have Chang from Extend Robotics, Silas from Rich Industries, and Hannah from currently Connected Places Catapult, but this is the new hat of Hannah, and also Arnie. So I guess we can go to the panel session. We are open right now to any questions that the audience might have. Feel free to enter the questions in the chat and we will pick it up from there. Again, my name is Nikos Tronios. I am co-chairing, actually chairing on behalf of Tom Fidian, who was planned to be the chairperson and who was directly involved with setting up all the COVID-19 competition and projects of which this presentation is about. I am part of the robotics and AI team. So I guess we can start while we wait for the questions coming up from the audience. I would like to put the question basically, all right, COVID-19 has impacted the way that we do business and the way that we did the business-led innovation in response to business to global disruption has been an exception. Now that you have had some time to reflect upon, what can you say that is the impact or the new situation that we have after COVID-19 based on the sorts, the minimus competition style project that you have had? So to rephrase, two things. What do you think about the de minimis project that you ran? in terms of project themselves, and how do you see this impacting the outputs of the company? I guess we can start with Zach from Perfect Company.
Yes, my name is Jacques. Well, the competition allowed us to actually validate a hypothesis we had that vacuuming using robotic vacuum cleaners improved cleanliness and enabled to have a cleaner space. And the competition enabled us to create a process to validate it and to demonstrate it. And following that competition, we were able then to demonstrate it to other of our clients and validate it within their environments. And it's going to speed up, I think, the adoption of automated vacuuming as a more cost-effective and a more effective way of cleaning, because with cost pressures and with the reduction in staff, vacuuming is being the orphan child, and usually people have no time left to vacuum, leaving most spaces very dirty and very dusty. And we are compensating for that. So I think it enabled us to really prove our solution and therefore accelerate our growth now that we are liberated from constraints.
Okay, thank you very much, Zach. What about you, Chang?
Yeah, hi, I'm Chang. So yeah, for Excel Robotics, really like we are during the pandemic, we're really like at the critical stage as a startup that really needed the funding the most. But actually during this period, it's really hard to raise investment for a startup like us. It's actually really hard period. I guess we're really lucky that we can get this innovation fund from Innovate UK that allows us continue innovation and continue the business that we're building. On the other side, this travel restrictions that really like it pose quite challenging for us to actually keep developing. But on the other side, this COVID period is really giving this new business opportunities, especially for innovative companies like us that we're literally building this remote working solutions for physical operations. And this really highlights the value our system could provide. That's basically we're providing this, we're extending this remote working into physical domain that combat the travel restrictions and even allows the medical operators to contact virus without actually contacting them. So exactly as the project we're doing, partnering with MDTech, that's actually demonstrating how you can use robots remotely doing similar operations as you would otherwise do with human direct contact into virus. So yeah, I would say this poses a lot of challenges for us, but it's a huge opportunity for innovative companies to come up with great ideas. Yeah.
Okay. What about in your case, Silas? What was the impact that let's concentrate right now on the project itself. It was a short project, not the minimum amount. How did it work out for you?
Yeah, I mean, having had the experience of running an early stage startup before, we're a new company in this Innovate UK project. So, we were quite innovative. We adopted frontier technology as part of our product development. And I think when COVID happened, obviously part of the remit for this project was, can we accelerate getting solutions that can have a wide reaching impact when it comes to robotics across the UK. And two things quickly was, everybody, I think through COVID, many companies or businesses saw the need for digital kind of to adopt digital tools in accelerating their businesses. And of course, there are two components to that. One is just becoming better data informed. And the second component is then automating where possible, so you can augment human capability and human performance. And so, from the very early stages, what we saw was the need to have something that can act as a data backbone for people that are building products or deploying them to market, so they don't have to worry about that first layer of gathering data from an infrastructure point of view, which could help us accelerate the number of products that get to market and the improvement that these businesses see as well. And then the second was actually deploying automation. You know, in the video we talked about the life science vertical and the plans we have in there. So all in all, it's what we've seen is positive kind of reception to adopting these new technologies. But of course, then what comes is for many businesses, because COVID was obviously blindsided a lot of people, they had planned to eventually adopt these things in the longer term, and that acceleration sometimes meant they didn't have the budget set aside to handle it. So it was important for us to then have solutions that had very low barriers to entry when it comes to the upfront cost. So there's been a lot of learning for us as part of the project, but also seeing where the market is moving towards.
Okay, we can go to Arnie right now if you want to complete something on this front.
Yes, I concur on many things that just have been said. The pandemic is both an extraordinary challenge and an extraordinary opportunity. It depends on how you look at it. The truth is, we've been working in collaborative robotics and intelligent system for real-time control using gestures since 5 years. The innovation cycle in robotics is extremely slow. Not that there's not innovators around. It's just that the industry is very slow to adopt them, these innovations, because of the industrial nature of robotics mainly. And what I thought, and I was really happy that this competition happened, because it means something has been seen very early here, is that there's only so much you can do with a laptop in the kitchen. And I think the situation, the context just created a completely new mindset for everyone. Because for once, innovation is triggered by necessity, not by envisioning what would be interesting in the future. So it's skipped a lot of steps for us innovators, creating virtual systems and using tools like VR, but also augmented reality and also a very complex IT control system for remote operations. Using natural interaction. So all these things we knew would have a massive impact, but the result for us was to prove with this program that with about £1,000 investment, you can transform an industrial robot, which is accessible, into a cobot, a completely safe operation, even on location. You can introduce robotics to unexperimented people, including children. For education, it takes about 10 years to train a robotics engineer. So what I mean by this is these new technologies are completely applicable. They can be used on the field. They can be used for a wide array of applications, and they can be accessible to the public. I was thinking about designers, engineers, people working in laboratories. How do you do this from a distance? And this what we're working on is exactly allowing this for a very for a small amount of money, and using the most efficient real industrial robots that are on the market and are accessible as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Arnie. And I will go right now to Hannah, although Hannah can present them, I guess, a more global overview rather than a specific project one, but feel free to provide any view that you feel more comfortable, Hannah, because of your experience on handling a lot of projects. Since you were part of the Innovate UK team, right now you are with Connected Places Catapult.
Can you just repeat the question, please? My connection dropped off.
Okay, so you can provide some comments either for the projects that were presented as a video or for the impacts that you saw from the drones related projects that you have seen as part of Future Flight and you continue to see as part of Connected Places Catapult that you are member of right now.
Okay, so I think that the most immediate impact of those projects that were funded through the COVID-19 response, through the various funding routes, was that we were able to bring communities closer together. So one of the things that has been highlighted by the COVID-19 pandemic is that where we're situated, where we live, and the healthcare that we receive, these two things are codependent. So if you live rurally and quite remotely, it can be quite challenging to get quick turnaround times, for example, for tests. And getting enough stock to different organisations can also be challenging. So some of the COVID-19 response projects looked at using drones for medical delivery. We saw a really successful Solent activity going on, Southampton to the Isle of Wight. If we look more broadly at the potential impact of drones on healthcare outside of COVID-19, there's a project that's being carried out called Project KTNUK up in the west of Scotland. And that's actually looking at using drones. So not in a corridor, this is where drones are in a segregated space, so no other air users can use them. That's been really useful in the COVID pandemic as an immediate response, but that isn't scalable. We can't block out airspace in order to use drones as a national picture. So what the KTNUK project is doing is looking at how we can integrate drones into our airspace so that they can be used without the need for corridors. And they're demonstrating that delivery times can be reduced to 20–40% of the original. And also drones can be used in conditions where you may not be able to access islands. So if we think about the Isle of Scilly postal delivery that's been supported by some of the drone activities, if there's fog, if there's high winds, those boats can't get to those islands. So those communities are unable to receive the healthcare that they need that's using the postal system. Using a drone system, we're able to access the islands from the mainland and get those goods and services across to those communities. So it's bringing the world closer together and really leaning to the government's levelling up of making sure that healthcare equity exists nationally.
Thank you, Hannah. There are already questions that have shown up. I will pick one of them, not necessarily the first one, but it is interesting following up on what you just said, Hannah. The question here is, during the COVID-19, there was a lot of willingness to try things out in new ways, etc., because it was in an emergency situation. A lot of things that you thought that you could do different things were moving around, and this created the opportunity for new thinking, for new ways of thinking, and trying to do things. Now that we are moving back to normal, do you detect any change on the mindset that would affect any type of similar project developments in the future? So I will go again. I can start again with Zach.
I think, unfortunately, we are seeing with the tail end of the pandemic, hopefully the tail end of the pandemic, assuming it's that way, that things are going back to normal with a little hiatus. The decision cycles are increasing again. The managerial practices of large organizations have become as they were, with the added uncertainty that people don't really know what's going to happen next 3 to 6 months. So there's a little extra delay. So I think people are, if it's not COVID-19 specific, which our product are not COVID-19 specific and not emergency specific, we are not discerning any willingness to recreate the emergency approach that was prevalent during COVID period. So that people are going back to what they used to do much quicker than we would have liked.
Okay, is this the same case for you, Chang? Or you don't see that yet?
Yeah, I guess for us it's like how do we continuously providing value post pandemic, and many of the demonstration we did was around this pandemic scenario where you focus on like emergency situation. But I guess especially for us is that we're really building this kind of a general purpose system that the scope goes beyond pandemic emergency response, but more of continuously providing this to allow people to increase productivities and ensure this safeties of their general working flow. Yeah.
Okay, and you, Silas, is it Do you detect this type of change that Zach mentioned, or you are more like Chang that concentrating on your day-to-day activities and you haven't seen much of a difference yet?
I think to relate it to Jack's response, I think it's a mix in industries where there's typically long kind of decision making, where decision making takes a while. You know, specifically some parts of manufacturing, you do see, because it's cultural. You do see things starting to move back in that direction. Whereas industries where there was some innovation already, or that are more prone to adopting new innovative tools, now there's no excuse really, because they've had an opportunity to experiment and test out some stuff. So for example, when it comes to say remote experiment or monitoring, you know, why should your scientists be walking around the building just to go keep an eye on this experiment, rather than being able to remotely monitor that? And so therefore, when you've got the evidence that there's that the potential here to improve human productivity, why would you go backwards? Whereas in some cases where, you know, to some extent it's to do with the nature of the industry, security, just natural resistance, a much older workforce as well, natural resistance to adopting new technology, you do start to see some of those behaviors come back in again.
Okay, so conclude this cycle with the question. Arnie, what about you? Yes, no, partially?
I believe there's been a fundamental shift. For the question is about the impacts certain industries had, how devastating it's been for certain industries. And I think those industries, especially the large groups, realize that resilience, it becomes a central point in their operation. So I do think it opened doors for having really profound discussions about how these technologies, these new sets of technology and innovation, can impact their operations on the long term. So of course, now there's we still live in a state of emergency, so everyone needs to go back to work very quickly. There's no time yet for reflection. And I think at the beginning of the pandemic, we all ran to tools in emergency. We didn't think were they safe, were they good, were they working for us. We just found something that we just ran to the video conferencing, use a laptop in the kitchen, as said, and that was what we had. But I believe the threat is always going to be there, and there's always threats for major events, whatever they are. But also there's lots of optimizations, which are not related to threats, but how to make things actually better, and help people genuinely be at the center of the technology revolution, and be in control of what happens, and not be victims of the lack of access to resources. And I think that really changed the mindset of many entrepreneurs, many large companies. It probably depends on the sector of activity. But I believe there's going to be a second wave of, hopefully not virus, but a second wave of thinking on the long term, where we don't rush into solutions just to not to die, basically, or get our business to die, but to really think about how to do things properly. And I think it will take some time and reflection.
Okay, so it's not clear yet. So Hannah, I understood from what you said about the opportunities that were given because of the need to have access to areas that typically would have been very difficult to provide facilities too easily, that clear up some, expedited some thinking and the availability of solutions, or the willingness to try new solutions. Do you feel that at least in the UK, the same momentum is maintained right now, that we are moving out for a specific sector that we are working on?
So I think the sector that I'm working in is the aviation sector. So one of the most high-profile hit sectors. And surprisingly, I think there is a willingness to adapt to these new technologies. We're seeing airports, both large airports and regional airports, investing and co-investing in research and development to make drone technology a reality. We also saw within the COVID-19 response, it wasn't just about healthcare, it was about removing people from risk in things like building inspections or construction sites, for example, where teams weren't able to go safely. And I think the the knock-on benefits of that is that you're still removing people from danger. So I think that, yes, at the moment we are seeing continued investment in this area. I think conventional aerospace has been really badly hit, but that's allowing space for the new disruptors to come with their technologies and really change the thinking of the industry. And I'm very hopeful for the future with regards to anchoring value in the UK. If the UK choose to seize the opportunity is currently there for us.
Okay, we do have some questions, and just a note that the questions that we will not answer in this panel, we will take them up later in the collaboration that we will move into. So there is a question to Silas, but the idea is interesting to see what most of the activity was about capture of data. Were you engaged with the analysis of this data to get insights based on this data that you had, or what exactly did you use the data for based on your data platform that you showed in the video?
On the first layer is obviously how do you get meaningful, useful data. In many cases, that's down to the business, and that's what the first product was. The backbone for Industry 4.0. We provide simple no-code tools that make it easy for you to extract some of the data that's valuable. And then in a lot of cases, it's enough to have data visualization and for remote monitoring and some of the control aspects. When it comes to the specific, the life science vertical, first of all is understanding a base truth about what's going on in the benchtop experiments. And so we're taking visual and audio data there. And then the tools that we're using and of course, then we need to derive insight from that to then be able to turn that into something that can be meaningful for the organization. And that's then a mix of some of our own proprietary technology and AWS, standard cloud infrastructure technology.
Okay, then I can go to two more or less similar questions around the same thing. There is one question that pertains to the patient's care, and in the environments that we saw on TV in many cases, when people feeling vulnerable, etc., how would the robotic type of intervention that we saw earlier from robotics will be perceived when we need the so-called human touch in these cases? What is the emotional support? What were the emotional reactions or the emotional support, or how did we handle the emotional support that people might be needed in cases that the mechanisms robotics without necessarily a face there was interacting with the patients?
Yeah, I think in terms of emotions, I guess we started with some scenario where you don't really have much choice. That if the robotic in general would help with this scenario, it's not like a pleasure to use robot for experience, certain experience, but more of seeing the robot as a tool that can actually make a huge benefit in terms of safety and in terms of getting things done quickly. So from that perspective, I think the general public would accept this type of robotic solution if it's really making direct benefit to their experience. Say they could get the treatment faster, or they could get the treatment in a better way without too much PPE of the operators, and the clinical expert could operate this robot from a remote location, so you can have the good experts doing the right thing for you, and that would for sure make benefit for patients. Yeah.
Okay, and there is a question here also indicating that AI and digital technology have made some impacts in addressing the COVID challenges. Again, we can discuss about that and to what extent this has taken place, but we can identify the areas on which this has taken place. The question is, are there any examples for robotics? Before I continue and pass the baton to either Chang or Hannah, I will jump a little bit and state that, and we had interactions with Hannah on that, that the so-called drones or unmanned or uncrewed aerial vehicles, there are different ways of looking at them. There is definitely the role of the transport, but there is also the role of aerial robotics. So what you saw earlier, in terms if it was even more automated in terms of interacting with the environment, would have been easily seen as an aerial robot. Or if you're doing any other type of data gathering for any type of acquisition, this would be exactly the same thing. But let's go right now to other questions that we have. I guess this one goes to Zach, because there is a question here that although hygiene is important, the surfaces, washing surfaces and hands excessively for the so-called hygiene theater might be a little bit excessive in terms of the way that they communicate the virus. Did you face any this type of doubts in your discussions, or it was another different situation?
To some extent, robots are much cleaner than humans. Having humans doing any cleaning introduces risks into a situation. Having robots who can be sanitized prior to any event quite easily reduces risk. So I think people see the benefit of dehumanizing cleaning, because it's the other advantage is once you use robots, you can actually monitor what area has been cleaned. And the moment you start digitizing any cleaning process, it again increases your ability to audit and monitor cleaning in a much more reliable way. So we haven't seen any pushback about that at this stage.
Okay. Now, before we close, we're getting close to the conclusion, I guess, of the panel session. Am I right to assess or to deduce from the presentation that I saw, with the exclusion of Hannah, who is working in a specific area, and the aerospace industry is very specific for that, in the remainder of you, the COVID-specific application, you had generic technologies, I will call them, or solutions or systems for which you found uses for COVID. Is that something that you had specifically for COVID? This is my view of things. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm correct, can you tell me, can you provide some feedback to the audience right now into the improvements, if any, that you have made to your systems for other market or other applications? Zach, can go ahead again.
To some extent, the COVID made us reprioritize our development path for sanitation. We had a digitization path, we had a cleaning path, we had an energy reduction path, we had a labor reduction path. And what we did, we repurposed and reprioritized the sanitation part of our product development cycle towards antigen to antivirology and antibacterial applications. It was simply a reprioritization. It wasn't detracting us, and it also forced us to actually be more rigorous in our documentation of the benefit, which that was very important because we didn't have the space otherwise to do it, and participating in COVID allowed us to really prove it in a clinical fashion that it worked, which again, it was very valuable for us.
Chang, is the same case for you?
Yeah, so really the output from our product was fundamentally is a system user interface that allows people to immersively visualize of a remote location in 3D, and also a system that is providing intuitive robotic control interface for people to use only gestures to operate. But at the end, what we are doing is basically allowing non-robotic experts to operate any robots or robot arms very easily without any background in robots. In fact, the demonstration video we did was under the COVID restriction, so we cannot actually physically attend to the demonstration. So we shipped this to the hospital, and actually the clinical experts was doing the entire operations and doing the filming. We were only instructing them remotely. So that was thought to be a big challenge, but at the end of the day, it turns out to be quite successful demo. Yeah. So, but this system that for sure doesn't constrain itself within only like healthcare sectors. It could be used also for like care homes, for example, like you want to take care of the elderly people, and it could be used for industrial inspections, maintenance tasks, where you want people to do some quite dangerous tasks. Instead of you do it, why not just to let the robot? You do it remotely, and doing space applications and so on.
We're running out of time from this panel. Thank you very much. We are all ready to go to the collaboration session, and we can continue the discussion there on a more uniform level. Thank you very much for your participation and both for the videos and presentations and everything else. I will see you in the other side of the world in 2 minutes.